Hello everyone, my name is Tenny, although I usually go by the screen name Cloud10 online, and this is my first game design devlog for Aerodyn. I've been really excited to start on this project for so long, and I hope that this video will be a good introduction to the work that I have planned. I've got my microphone up, I have OBS open, have a script written, but really, this is my first time making a video of this kind, so I'll be trying to keep it as casual as I can and just hoping to share this project with you. So let's just dive right into it. In this specific video, I'll be covering the project that I'm working on, the progress that I've made so far, some of the issues that I've overcome along the way, and finally I'll close with my future schedule and what I hope to do between now and the next devlog. And by the way, these devlogs are hopefully going to be uploaded bi-weekly, so yeah, you can look forward to another one of these in about 2 weeks if everything goes as planned. Anyway, so what exactly is my project? So the tagline I have is that Aerodyn is a 2D Metroidvania style platformer with an emphasis on player expression through freeform movement. In other words, you as the player are given a ton of different types of jumps and other movement abilities, and it's up to you to choose which ones you like the best and make them work for you. It was my goal going into this game to avoid the usual Metroidvania setup where you're faced with a specific obstacle that you can only overcome with a specific move or weapon, and you just have to wait around until you unlock it. It kind of limits where you're able to go. Instead, I want the player to feel like while there is a straightforward intended route, and the game becomes easier once you have specific abilities, there's always the possibility to go off the rails and come up with your own strategy to clear each area. For example, you could use a built-in wall jump ability to reach a ledge that's way up at the top of the wall, or you could sprint off an edge while charging an explosion attack, launch yourself up into the air with that, and then use the recoil of a different shotgun style attack to get the extra height you need to reach the ledge. So whichever one works best for you, you're free to choose which one you want. With all this in mind, it was important for me that the core game design I'm working on both encourage experimentation and incentivize system mastery. Now I know these two elements sound contradictory at first, but it's possible to uphold both. To see why, let's look at planned mechanics that achieve each individually. So first, let's look at encouraging experimentation. In order to do that, I had to create a platformer that doesn't punish the player for making mistakes. Sounds like an oxymoron, I know, but there are games that manage to do that. My personal favorite game series, the Kirby series, does this really well. The main character Kirby has infinite jumps to bail the player out of any mistakes they might make, and copy abilities that are really common can be used in almost any situation. So together, these two mechanics allow the player to experiment freely through each playthrough. Of course, there's the small detail that those games are also really easy, which means there's basically no risk of losing progress, but that's kind of a secondary thing. On the other hand, enabling system mastery requires a platformer that has a meaningful system for the player to engage with, and right and wrong ways to use said systems. Most games lean towards this more challenging approach anyway, but I think for a specific example, Celeste best exemplifies the approach that I'll be taking in this game. In Celeste, there are only two primary movement mechanics, wall jumping and air dashing, but keeping the scope really narrow is really an advantage for the game. It allows them to implement these two mechanics very cleanly and specifically. The movement is very tight in Celeste, and as a result, they can really focus on iterating on those two mechanics by combining it with unique stage elements and obstacles in each level. I wanted to combine both of the approaches from the two examples I listed, both having experimentation and also system mastery. In Aerodyn, both approaches are combined into a single mechanic, the breath system. Through this system, most of the player's abilities, multi-jumps, projectile attacks, special moves, etc., require a certain amount of breath to activate. As long as the player has enough, they can chain together as many moves and abilities as they want. The player only has a small amount of breath initially, which limits how versatile they are in the air. Thus, as they gain more breath over the course of the game, they can perform even more advanced maneuvers with the same abilities. They also gain new abilities, which they'll be able to use more creatively as they gain more breath, again, over the course of the game. The player has access to several moves that don't cost breath as well, in particular an air dive ability and slide ability, which together provide additional mobility techniques for them to change their momentum. So the character controller is pretty robust under the hood, but as you can tell by looking at it right now, well, it's pretty bare bones. Not much art or visual flair, but that's just what the white boxing stage is like. I'm working on more presentable sprites right now, but those won't be done for a while. Speaking of, here is the development schedule that I have for the project moving forward. This schedule has already been slightly modified from the one I started out with, as I kind of expected that to happen. There have been a few setbacks over the past few weeks, in particular Winter Storm Uri that I'm sure you've all heard about. We were basically buried under a freak snowstorm for a week there, but that's all in the past now. At any rate, I've adjusted my timeline to compensate for those delays, and also reestablished the schedule for my devlogs. So by the time of the next devlog, I plan to have all the stage limit elements at least prototyped, and have completed the main character sprites as well. I'm really excited to keep updating this devlog, and I'm hoping that it'll help me to both stay accountable to my schedule and encourage me by leaving me a record of the progress I've made over time. For all of you who sat through this whole video, thanks, and I would love any feedback that you can provide me. Thanks, and I will see you in the next one.